if you apply some of those things to the rest of your life. But who knows, maybe like all of us, including myself, will just learn nothing and I'll go back to being a piece of shit for the next however many years I'm here. So who knows?
Hey, welcome to the Gifted Conversations, where I'm talking to people who are sharing their gift with those around them and the world at large. My guest today is comedian Dan Carney. Right before COVID hit, he was starting to make a name for himself in the New York comedy scene. We talked about Florida life, romanticizing comedy, what it feels like to bomb, participation trophies, and a bunch of other things. Forgive me for being a bit silent. I was laughing throughout this entire chat and didn't want to distract you. So, have a listen to my talk with comedian Dan Carney. For sure, and those are all valid questions, and I hope that people actually think about that. I think some people probably don't.
They don't.
Yeah.
They don't. No. It's just me and you, and then people get doing meth and going to Applebee's in Florida. So like, I mean, literally, like I say that is in jest a little bit, but I do know people who smoke meth and go to Applebee's right now, like during this time. They're not my friends, but I know them. I grew up with them. And so that's what they do. And that's what they'll always do. I mean, if you're doing those things now, then you will do those things for the rest of your life.
Yeah,
You know?
you're not wrong on that. That's going to tie into one of the things I was talking about. But
Matt.
just to kind of like dive in. So, I mean, you're a comedian, and
Yeah.
I'm just kind of curious, how did you get started in comedy, and how did that come about?
Yeah. So I was always like, like being kind of the funny guy or whatever, I guess, in class. Not to toot my own horn here, but I was a very smart kid. And I think a lot of the public schools that I went to, because for a period of the time in elementary school and middle school, I grew up in the South, and some of the, like, in, here in Florida. And then also I lived in Georgia for a little bit. And I don't think that all of the classes I took really challenged me. And so like, I just had a lot of like, I didn't care. Like I was like, this class I'll get an A no matter what. So I would just fuck around and be the class clown. And I enjoyed that. I got like a rise out of it. I could get people's attention. Um, and it's funny, actually. I remember like the other day, my parents were telling me about how they met with all of my teachers like in eighth grade, because I guess I was acting weird or probably like an angsty teen or whatever. So my parents were like, "Oh, let's meet with this teacher, see if there's anything wrong." And they were like, all of them said that he's like, good kid, but he goofs around or a lot or whatever. Like, he tries to make jokes and whatever. So I was always like, being funny. And then I just felt like doing stand up was kind of like a natural thing to try out. So I tried it. I did like an open mic when I was 17 years old. I was still in high school. And, I mean, I wasn't good, but like the experience, it went very well. Like it was a very weird open mic. The place doesn't even exist in Tampa anymore. That's where I did it. It's actually in Ybor City. I don't know if you've ever heard of that, but it's a part of Tampa, like, and it's just. I mean, there's like chickens run around the streets there. It's a crazy place. So the open mic, I mean, there was literally a guy brought his laptop and he just played a video of bees into a microphone. Like it was very weird. It was like an all arts mic, and I was like last on the list. And I followed some guy who did like a beautiful rendition of the Hallelujah song, and I actually did well. Like it went well, and then I just didn't do it again. I went to college, and I really didn't do it again until like my senior year of college, because I guess I just was like, all right, well, none of my friends were really doing this. I never thought of it as a career. I didn't know like how to progress into it. I just was like, oh, I tried it, I did it. Even though I really liked it, I didn't even like think about doing it again until I was a senior in college. I got accepted into some like screenwriting program for a summer at USC. Started doing open mics there. Really liked it. When I got back to finish, I went to Florida State University. The program at USC was just for a summer. When I got back to FSU, I was like, let me start doing whatever open mics they have here. And I just kept doing it, fell in love with it even more. And then by the time it was, by graduation time or leading up to it, I was like, well, I'm going to move somewhere where I can keep doing this. And then New York City was the best option for that. So that's why I moved there. Uh, and then, worked hard and things started going well. And before the pandemic, I actually was able to like pay all my bills doing stand-up comedy. So like professionally, like, I was a stand-up comedian, and like, had I had, the year had gone on and progressed the way it should have, with me opening for a guy named Tim Dillon, who's a bigger headlining comedian.
I've heard of him.
Um, yeah, he's the best. He's hilarious. He's a madman. But he's so funny, and it was like, oh, this is kind of like a dream. Working with one of my favorite comedians. I'm opening for him, and had the year gone on, like I would have, paying my taxes next year, all the money would have been from comedy, and I was paying my rent and things like that. So it took me only a couple years to get there, about 2 years or so, doing stand up, to get to like a point where I was professionally, or doing it professionally, which was, I think is not, it's not always that common.
That's
But
amazing. I mean, I knew you
yeah,
were doing well, but I didn't know
yeah,
that it was like all your income was just straight comedy. That's incredible.
yeah, yeah. So I think, yeah, like January and February, and then like, the time period before March, I was able to pay. Like I was working for Tim, you know, so for, I think, late January and February. So it was really like a 6 to 8 week period. Maybe I had just started to, and I had like, was booking some of my own gigs. I would do like college gigs every now and then. And I had like a bunch of gigs lined up like that I was doing independently and with a couple other friends, that we were going to perform like at like colleges and like with college frats and things like that we were setting it up ourselves. So like I had money coming in from that, and then on this tour with Tim. So yeah, that's where I kind of left things off. So now I'm like, all right, how do I get back to that?
Yeah, man, this what a year. I mean, congrats that it
Yeah.
started out so strong, and at least, it's all out of our control of what fucking happened this year,
Yeah.
but
It's so funny. I was talking to my friends like the beginning of the year, and like, he's doing pretty well. He's a comedian. We were both of us were like, oh, this is going to be such a big year. Like I'm sure so many people are like, oh, this is 2020 is my year, and then now it's like, well, this is none of our years. This is like, but you got to find a way to make it work. So I mean, it's been a lot of like reflecting on how I got there, what do I want out of life, how am I going to be able to turn what I was turn the work, like my focus on the work getting there, into something else that will also be fulfilling and profitable. Because I was, most of my success was coming from live performing, and that's not in anyone's hand for the next probably until spring of 2021, until that's like a real thing again.
yeah, with the band I used to play in, looking at some of the articles and my friends that play in bands, they're like, yeah, expect to go to shows in maybe fall of 2021. It's like,
Yeah.
great. There
So a lot of
goes.
these tours are being postponed. I mean, until like I saw like, a lot of artists, bigger artists, are like, yeah, we're not even going to talk about it till like fall of 2021. Some people are saying spring, and there's been pop-up comedy shows, and I'm sure probably some, you know, uh, concerts, but the consistency is not there. Making a living off of it is kind of out of the question for a little bit. But it's just, you got to find a way to make it work. The podcasting is huge, and sketches and things like that are definitely something I can do to try to fulfill time, and also like my energy, and what gets me off comedically. But it's just crazy. It's like a seismic shift in all of our lives and a lot of our livelihoods.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I'm totally with you on all that, and I saw that skit that you did about like the Florida fireworks guy,
Oh yeah,
which was
yeah.
I thought was brilliant. So I'm just
Thank you,
kind,
man.
of course, yeah, I'm just kind of wondering, and we were talking about this a little bit, how growing up in Florida has like impacted you as a person, and what like you've kind of learned, or at the very least, maybe it's just endless entertainment from some of the. I don't want to like shit on Florida, but
No, no,
from
you can, and you should. I mean, I grew up here. I love the state. Um, the state is beautiful. And I've always kind of had the same opinion about it. It's filled with a lot of people who just seem like, and not everybody's bad. There's some great people. I have a lot of friends. Obviously, I grew up here, and I have pride and I mean, not as much right now with everything that's going on, how our country or our state is handling it, the coronavirus. But it's definitely shaped who I am. What really made me notice how Florida is like is moving to New York, and it's so drastically different. And then when I was living in New York and I would come back to visit here in Florida, that's when I would be like, "Holy shit, this is what Florida is like," because it was such a unique perspective to have. It's like, okay, I grew up here, I had an idea in my head what it was like, but then you kind of romanticize certain parts of your childhood and how things are, and it's like, oh, this place was like, it could be like a downtown whatever city you're living in. I'm sure like you're from like a small town, you're like downtown or whatever it is to you was like, oh, this is where everything's happening. And then you go to New York, and then you go back like the city, and then you go back to your hometown. You're like, oh, this is like, my neighborhood in New York was bigger than this.
A million percent, yeah.
So it's definitely it affected the way that I think. But I don't know if I could put like a pin on like this is how it's changed my line of thinking. It's just opened up, I guess, my horizons and my perspective on how people grow up and how it affects their way of thinking. My dad was in the army, so we moved around a lot when I was a kid. The bulk of my childhood was spent in Brandon, Florida, Tampa, I guess you could say. And had I never moved away, had I had been living here in Florida during the outbreak of this coronavirus, I don't know how seriously I would have taken it. You know what I mean? Like, because it wasn't real when it was real. Like, it wasn't real here in Florida when it was affecting New York, New Jersey as much.
Yeah.
Me living there during that time and then coming back here, it was very interesting because everybody there is taking it extremely seriously. But when I got back here, like no one was wearing masks, none of the employers, none of the customers. My friends would make fun of me for like taking it seriously. And
Yeah.
so it's that type of stuff like that I think like has kind of changed the way that I think about certain things. But Florida's an interesting place because it's so beautiful that there's not a ton of incentive to leave. But I've always had this thinking, and it's like I want to get out and I want to do things. I have ambition, and I know that they can't be really accomplished while I'm here. So growing up here made me want to leave here, I guess. But I don't mean that in an offensive way. It's just the way it is.
Sure. And I mean that's super important just to get perspective, and especially if you're going to be living in a place like New York, which, one of the top cities on the planet. And I get the same thing when I come
Yeah.
back to my little town where it's like, my little block in Bushwick is feels like the size of my entire town.
Yeah.
And I like new experiences. I don't like sitting at the bar when they open at 3 to start
Yeah.
drinking. So yeah, and the fact that my sister's down in Orlando and my dad's figuring out how to retire so he can move to Florida. So it's like, all right,
Moved to
might be
Florida. Yeah.
spending some more time there.
It's not a bad place, man, especially for retirement. I mean, it's the place is freaking beautiful, and like if you do have a reason to be here, like if your work pulls you here, it's not a bad place to live at all. I mean, there's no income tax, so like it's you can live like a king here comparatively to like living in New York City. Um,
Yeah, that's what I've heard.
but like one interesting thing that I've kind of noticed is when you're in New York, it's this land of diversity, right? And everyone's like, oh, it's so diverse. But when you're there for so long, any place, it's not diverse. There's like go to New York and then go to Brandon, Florida. That's when you'll see diversity. Like, you know what I mean? Like you're in New York, it's like, oh, this is the way people are. It's beautiful, these cultures. Then you come here and it's like, oh, this is what America is. Because like New York is a bubble. Like it is like its own thing. And there's so many cultures and whatever, but like it's not a good representation of what America is. You know what I mean? You got to go out to like bumfuck Florida or Nebraska or upstate New York, and it's like, okay, this is where all the thinking that is criticized in New York is coming from.
I've thought about that just because geographically the U.S. is just so big, and the
Yeah.
people I'm hanging out with and the things we're doing in the city in New York, that probably doesn't even exist in 80-90% of
No.
any of these other places. So it's yeah, it's just it's crazy. I'm totally with you on that.
Yeah, like in New York, you could go and it's like, oh, I have friends who are trans, gay, like all these different types of people. I have like Ethiopian friends, like all just whatever it is. And then you go to like, fucking, I don't know, I'll just say Brandon, I guess. Like I grew up with none of that. You know what I mean? Like I can't remember any Asian kids in my school growing up. I can't, and it's just like, I mean, there's not a lot of them in Tampa. It's just the way it is. So you do got to go, and you got to. I think it's important that you travel, you live in other places, but never one place for too long. I think otherwise you start to build your own ideas of what it's like to be in America, your own generalizations when really that's not true. So it's important to know, I think, where other people are coming from as well.
Yeah, for sure. I'm with you on that to switch things up every now and then and get a
Yeah.
perspective. So when you're in New York and let's say pre-COVID, but when you're out there kind of going to nightclubs and doing comedy, I'm just kind of wondering what is it like for you and doing comedy in the city? Are you like workshopping stuff all the time? Are you out at the clubs, 6 nights a week, or what's that look like?
Yeah, it was getting like that at the end of my time there. So I mean, when you go to New York and you start doing comedy, unless you're like an accomplished or established person in another city, you're going to start doing open mics, and you're going to do these small bar shows. So that's what you start with. You're just trying to get out there and whatever. And I remember first getting there, moving to New York. Excuse me, and not even been able to make anybody laugh at these open mics. And it's like, I just remember being in like Queens and like Astoria, because I was just like trying to go to as many different places as I could in the city. Like I was living my first apartment was in Hell's Kitchen for a summer, and then I moved to Harlem for a year. And I just would like go to as many different places within New York as possible, and just remembering like, how am I going to make anybody laugh? How am I going to get a laugh? And then you just work hard, and then you try to watch as much comedy and like live comedy and talk to people and workshop stuff constantly to see what's funny and take risks. And then, eventually or ideally, that leads to you being passed at these clubs to perform and getting on better shows. So, towards my, the end of my time there, I guess, pre COVID, I was, 6 nights a week, 5, 6 nights a week when I wasn't on the road with Tim. I was performing at these clubs, Caroline's and, Stand Up New York. I was performing there quite a bit. And, just various bar shows in other rooms like the Lantern in the Village, and just getting a more regular stage time to where I didn't have to do open mics. And that's when I really noticed myself getting a lot better because I was able to go on the road and try some new material in front of people in Chicago or Charlotte or wherever, Philly, wherever it was. And those people were different. Sorry, those people were. Did you hear me getting that call?
Yeah, but
Oh,
it
I'm
adds
sorry.
character to all this. That's all good.
Okay, uh, that's my bad. So like you're trying out all this different material in front of all these different people, and especially in New York. Oh, like LOL Comedy Club was a place I'd perform at, and a Tuesday night there, it was all tourists at that club. A Tuesday night there is in Times Square. This club is nuts. So it's gonna be interesting to see if they'll be back after the pandemic. But it could be packed on a Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Because like they're all tourists. So like a Tuesday night there is like a Saturday night at like a Caroline's or a Stand Up New York or some other place. So it was just, I know I went off on a tangent there, but it's really interesting because you're going to all these different rooms and you're trying out all this different material. And the best is when you have like 3 or 4 shows in a night where it's like, okay, I'm starting, I'm in the Village. I got to run uptown real quick to do a set. And you get there 5 minutes before your set's 10, 15 minutes long, and boom, you do that. And then You got like 30 minutes to get back downtown, and then you do a set there. And now you have like an hour and a half to kill maybe before your late night set. So you just hang out with other comics, and you go to shows that your friends are on, or you go to a bar and talk to your friends. And it's you're always doing something, and it's always new, it's always exciting. And if you're trying something new on stage every time, and maybe you're saying a line in a different way, or you're trying a new tag or a new joke or whatever it is, you're going to get better, and it makes it a lot more exciting.
Yeah, man, that's awesome. And I am not a comedian by any means, but I enjoy comedy. I love listening to like
Yeah.
old school stories from like Joe Rogan and Bill Burr and stuff. And when they're in the city, they're like, in like what you were saying, it's like, hey, I got a spot here at like 10 p.m. I'm going to be here at 11. I got this and that. And there's something, I don't know, it sounds romantic to me, even though it
It is.
scares the shit out of me to be on stage with like a microphone trying to make people laugh.
There is, I guess you could say, something romantic about it. That's also one of its faults, is I think comedy, because a lot of these stories is so romanticized. So you get like these absolute lunatics who think that they could try it and it'll cure all their sicknesses, but really they're just literal, madmen and crazy people. So it dilutes it a little bit, and I think it became oversaturated to a point. But it it is. It's great. It's very exciting, and it's fulfilling too. Like it's very interesting to go from being in New York and being stimulated all the time, especially when I was working a day job before I was able to quit it, because you would work from 9 to 5, and then from 5 p.m. until like 11 p.m., midnight, or 1 a.m., 2 a.m. sometimes even. I did shows at LOL Comedy Club at like 1:30 or 2 in the morning because they just go all night. And you're out all night, and then you got to wake up at 8 a.m. and go to a job. It's like you're stimulated 24/7. And if you're working out and trying to have a social life too, it's nuts. And then you go from that to boom, pandemic hits, and I'm watching 10 hours of The Sopranos, eating ice cream and crying over a bottle of white wine. Like it's just such a drastic change.
A good choice with The Sopranos. I'm with you
Oh
on
yeah.
that.
Yeah. I watched it for the first time over the quarantine or whatever. It's great.
Yeah, so good. So you mentioned that you did like your first open mic night at like 17,
Yeah.
and with comedy, you're doing whatever 10-minute bits or sets, so it's like
Yeah.
kind of short and concentrated things. But how did you how did you overcome the fear of getting on stage, if there ever like any fear?
So I did it, like I said, first time I was 17, that I didn't do it again until I was 21. And the open mic was just 5 minutes. And I remember I had like a couple jokes in there that were good, or like for the time, but I don't know, I just did it. Like I I can't explain it. I just do things. Like I'm very cautious with some things, and I'm very like, I'll take risks. Like I moved to New York like a couple weeks after I graduated. I had no job or I didn't have an apartment until like a couple days before I like moved. I already had the plane ticket. And I just jump in things, and I do them, because really that's the only way you're going to get better or have those experiences that you ultimately want. But like I don't like roller coasters. Like I'm like cautious about like other things. Like I don't like that type of stuff. Like it's interesting, but I don't know. Like I definitely was I nervous? Yeah, I would say it was like an anxious nervousness. Like I wanted to do it. It wasn't like, oh, am I going to back out? I had a few friends that I brought with me, which you don't do at an open mic unless it's your first time. It's such a first timers thing to do, is to bring other people. But like I brought like a couple close friends who I liked, and they thought I was funny. So I was like, yeah, I'm going to do this thing. Why don't you want to come see me do it? And it went well. But yeah, it was. I remember. I think I like blacked out during. I was like nervous, but it was like an excited nervous. I don't even think. I think I left the microphone in the stand, because I was like, I don't want to like fuck it up, and I don't know. I just was like, I'm gonna do it, but there's a little bit of apprehension there.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I played in a band for a long time, but one way I wanted to get confidence for myself was like doing an open mic night, just
Yeah,
playing bass when I couldn't sing, and songwriting definitely not. And the place I went to, like the bar was set so low that I was like, if you don't get on this stage, like you're gonna hate yourself for the rest of your life.
ex- that's a great way to put it. That's a great point. Like, yeah, exactly. Like if you don't do it, you're gonna regret it. So you don't want to live with those regrets. I mean, seeing that guy bring his laptop with bees, um, like to the microphone, that made me be like, all right, well, if I don't do this, then what the fuck am I doing? This guy just played a video of bees. There's nothing else. There's nothing, no higher concept, no commentary, just the video of bees. That was it. So if B guy can do it, then I can go up and do 5 minutes of shit jokes or whatever I had at the time.
Yeah, that's I was gonna throw that in there at some point. I think on Bill Burr's new special, where he's like at Royal Albert Hall. He's like, "Thanks for letting me do my shit and piss jokes up here." It's like,
Yeah, yeah,
love
yeah.
that.
Just this gorgeous, gorgeous room. That was such a good special. But yeah, I mean, you're right. Like if you don't take those risks, I think that's a big thing of it too. It's like, what am I going to do? Am I going to live in Brandon, Florida, the rest of my life, or am I going to move to New York? My plan initially was like, oh, I'm going to move back home after college, save some money, get a job, and then I'll move in like 2019. This was 2018. I graduated college, and my mom, probably one of the best advice I've ever gotten, or the most impactful thing anyone has ever said to me. She was like, well, why don't you just go now? And like my mom is, I love her to death. She's extremely cautious.
Yeah,
She's
mom.
very much like safe. Like it goes against like her nature to say something like that. Like she is extremely supportive, but she's like, she would be the type like, oh, why don't you just, whatever. But like the fact she said that, I just remember being on the phone and like being like, oh, I don't have an answer. I can't tell you why I wouldn't do that. Why? Yeah, why not? Like I should just go. And then like I ended up like performing at a club. Luckily, I was working there. Like my first week, I was there, and it went well enough to like send the tape to like the manager and of the club. And I didn't get passed till like a year later, but like I started getting stage time. I got my own show at that club, and that like in, inserted me into the scene there, and was really the catalyst for like everything that I was able to do, and kind of showed me that like, okay, if you put in hard work, because I was like working at the place for a while and helped out some comedian that let me perform, and if you put yourself out there, then good things can happen. So it's a very valuable lesson.
Hell yeah, that's awesome, man. That's good for you. Good for your mom to be to give you that advice. So your parents or your family, they're supportive of what you're up to?
Yeah, they're very supportive. They are. I mean, there obviously is a difference between being supportive and understanding it fully. I mean, like you're a performer, you're an artist, so like and you're a creative person, so you get all that stuff and you understand like the pursuit of it. But there is like a veil that's there between like people that are pursuing it as a career and versus people who just like maybe passively watch like something on Netflix every now and then. So it is a big difference, but they're incredibly supportive. And I'm very lucky. Like not everybody's parents are. But yeah, I'm very lucky that they're supportive.
That's awesome, man. That's really good to hear. My parents are they're starting to come around, but
Yeah, it's tough, man. It's tough. Like it's my dad was in the army for 25 years. He retired as a colonel, and my little brother, who's a year younger than me, now he's a pilot in the Navy. So it's like now I'm unemployed, living in my parents, living in my childhood bedroom. But I was, out there. They're probably like, oh, this guy's. When I was in New York, they're like, oh, this guy's probably doing heroin and like, you know, I don't know, like selling his butthole to somebody on the street. Like, who knows what this guy's doing? Like, he's probably going to wash up in the East River at some point. But it's a lot of hard work, and just like anything else, if you treat it like a career and like a job, and you put effort into it, and you obviously have to have talent and a knack for it, then you can make stuff happen. But it's never something that I took lightly. I understood that it was going to be a difficult thing to do, and whenever the time permits or the current uh, environment permits us to do those live stuff again, I'll put in the same amount of hard work. But until then, I gotta do some soul searching and figure out how I can, get a leg up with everybody sitting at home.
Yeah, man. Well, I'm cheering you on, and it seems like you're doing, like you say, you got some sketches, some of the podcasts going. So
Yeah.
you're still working, and that's awesome. Uh, just every comedian, and I mean every performer in general always will go through some version of this. And I don't want to be negative, but I'm just kind of curious. How do you handle bombing? Because I know we've all
Oh
been there.
no. Oh, I bombed very hard. It's many times. It's just something you have to do, and like it builds callus, and you're not going to get better unless you do it. There's a few comedians that people talk about, like, oh, I've never seen them bomb, but it has got me better, and it's you know what it is? It's a life experience that if you take it the right way, and you appreciate it, that it is what it is. It's something that you'll have that will separate you from pretty much everybody else in life. Everybody bombs in some way, whether it's like they're trying to talk to someone they're attracted to at a bar, or they shoot their shot sliding in someone's DMs, or they're at a work presentation that just no one gives a shit about. But like being in front of a crowd, an audience that just does not give a fuck about you and is looking at you like, what do you got for us? I mean, it does get you better, because you start to give less of a shit, because you're like, this could go poorly. And even if it does, I don't care, because I've gone through hell gigs before. So I think it just makes you better, honestly. Oh, it definitely makes you better.
Yeah, I mean that makes total sense. And there's like even I mean when I was doing some of those like hilarious open mic nights back in the day, I was like playing bass, and then this drunk guy just like stumbled onto the drum kit and started playing behind me off beat as I was like my first open mic, and I was like, what the fuck is this? But those
Uh,
are character building things. And
yeah, yeah. Dealing with drunk audience members is a unique experience.
that's what I was gonna ask next. How do you deal with hecklers?
I think I got good at like crowd. I got pretty good at crowd work. My crowd work was getting really good. So like there was some times where I just there's some people that were trying to heckle and be drunk, and I just destroyed them. Um, but of course, it doesn't always work that way. I mean, I remember there was one time where I did a show. The show started at like freaking 2 a.m. At LOL, and everyone on the show, for the most part, we all just kind of knew that it was what it was. Like, it's 2 a.m. These people are not like scholarly individuals. They're here for a reason. They're drunk, and
Yep.
they see it as an opportunity to not really just laugh, but sometimes be an asshole to the person on stage and kind of get a rise out of that. So I remember like this show, I went up and everyone was bombing, and like really fucking hard. Like just like I remember being in the green room, and the showroom that it was, there was like a wall between the green room and the showroom separated. So you could hear everything. No laughs, none whatsoever. And there's probably like
Ooh.
20, 30 people in the audience, which was actually a lot for that time of night. And just everyone was bombing. And then I get up there and I made some jokes just kind of about people in the crowd and, myself or whatever. Like they were like, because they were rowdy. Like there was guys like, oh, we want to see a woman. Where are the women at? And I went up there and I was like, here you go, boys. Like like here I am. Like it's 2 a.m. What do you think? Like, and, I made fun of myself for looking like Ellen DeGeneres. I called myself like, yeah, I just made a whole bunch of jokes like that, and it was going well. And I was like, okay, I got them on my side. You build a little momentum. Made a few jokes about people in the audience. Felt like I connected with this one guy who was being the biggest piece of shit ever to everybody. And I was like, oh, like I got this guy on my side. Like this guy is kind of like the ringleader of this room of lions that these are monsters. And I was like, okay, I got this guy on here on my side. And the stage at LOL is like one of the stages is just like it feels like you're like 30 feet above everybody else. So it's like just you and like literally just like barbarians that are staying at a hotel near Times Square. So I'm like, okay, I'm doing well. And like 5 or 6 minutes go by, 7 minutes of me doing crowd work. And it's like, all right, I'm going to go into my material. Go into the material, immediately huge tank, like bombs like crazy. And in my head, I'm like, well, I got you guys on my side. You guys know I'm funny. Give me a little bit of leeway here. This is the agreement that I thought we had. And the guy, like, who I was telling you was being an asshole to everybody, he just kind of goes, we get it. And I was like, what? And he's like, yeah, your dad, he likes you. He doesn't. You do this, your dad, your phone, whatever. He's like, I don't care. We don't care. And the thing that sucked most about that was he was right. He was, no, they didn't give a shit. If they did, they'd be laughing. And I just kind of had to fucking, you know, try to work my way out of it and work my ass off for laughs. But I've had some bombs there, man. There's
Yeah,
nothing.
sometimes you got to eat some shit.
I mean, that club you can at LOL you can do. It's a workout room, as a lot of people say, is because you can do like 3 or 4 or 5 shows there at a night, and 2 or 3 of them can go fucking amazing. It's like you can go literally. They have 2 rooms, so you can get off stage at one room and go right to the other one. And I've done that a number of times to where like I have a set that goes like all right at one, and then I go to the other one. I just fucking crush, and it's like, oh, this is how you do it. But then you have sometimes the reverse of that, where it's like your last set's like 1:30 in the morning, and you just eat a fat fucking turd, and it's like, well, I got to go home now, and I got to go on the train where like people might want to kill me, and like I just left from this experience where everybody hated me, and it's just interesting. It builds character.
That's got to be a humbling walk to the train and walk home after eating some shit.
You're just like, because everyone thinks that they're better than you in the audience when you bomb, and like it's like, oh, I know what I'm capable of. Like I'm doing well. Like I'm funny. Like how'd you guys not see that? You guys just don't get comedy. But then you listen back to your set, and you're like, oh, like I was fatigued, or I just was like not into it, or I just said this weird, or I totally missed a line that would have made sense if I had done it right, or they are just drunk and disorderly. So it's a really a carousel of shit. But the more you do it, the better you get, and the more I don't want to say you have control, but you know the more capable you are of kind of wrangling those types of experiences.
Yeah, man, it's comedy also is like it's unique to me in that most things the like playing music for the most part the audience is usually with you. Like even if they're not
Yeah,
necessarily feeling you, they're not going to like talk shit back to you where in comedy is like
yeah.
feels like the one thing where it's like if they don't like you, they might just let you know and then other people might chime in and then it's like, well, that didn't go as planned.
I feel like you have to be really bad to get like booed or something in music, or you just like you're at some like room, I guess, that you're not playing the style of music that they like. Have you ever had like a
I
really negative experience like that?
I've never seen anybody get booed or anything like that. It's one
Wow.
thing if like people don't.
I've never been booed, but like heckled or anything like that, or
No, not even.
no?
Like it's what
Wow.
sometimes maybe the cheering or the applause isn't so loud after a song or whatever, but I've never seen anything where yeah, being booed or like anybody talking shit or anything for the most part. So, yeah, I don't know.
Dude, I bombed so bad that like people have like, I mean, like when you're doing shows, I mean, the worst bombs I've had have been at like 1:30 or 2 in the morning, and like as at least in like the last year. But I bombed so bad at some of those rooms where like people are just laughing at me for like trying to do jokes. Because when I started performing it in that room, I didn't have experience with like those types of crowds before, where it's like late as fuck. You got to do this, and that. You can understand if you bomb, you bomb. Like it's just kind of the nature of the place. But like obviously finding ways to not bomb. And that's what a lot of people don't do is they'll bomb and they'll blame it on the crowd, and they do that for years, and then they never get anywhere, and it's like, well, it was your fault. So you always got to kind of look at it with this perspective of like, all right, it was something that I did, so that way you can get better. Um, if you're a basketball player and you miss 15 shots, you're not going to be like, oh, the rim just sucked today. It's like, all right, let's take a look in the mirror here, pal. So I remember starting there, and then just I remember like just going in and like just thinking, oh, I could do joke, 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 because the audience is they're here for jokes, and it's like they're not always there for that. So they could be there for something different or something more. And I remember just going up and just immediately starting to do jokes and going through like whatever my set list and just eating it. And people like 2 minutes in just start laughing. Like a lady starts laughing. She's hammered and she's laughing because I'm trying. And like it just I remember there was one time I was bombing so bad, and I think everybody was bombing on the show, or a lot of people were, and they just wanted to get the fuck out of there. And the audience did. And I was bombing, and this guy was like, one guy, like it was a good crowd of like 10 people. It was really late. But one guy was laughing, and like he just was like weirded out that like no one else was laughing, and he was laughing and clapping. And I guess his friend or whoever was next to him turned to him and was like, stop. Like I was bobbing so bad that he to stop the guy from supporting me. He was like, no, just let this happen. And the guys, like, I could see it. Like the room had lights. Like it's not like it was one of those rooms where I couldn't see the audience. I could see all this perfectly clearly, and just knowing it's like, well, I got like another 8 minutes left of trying it out. But after you do that for enough times, you're just like, I don't give a fuck. Like you build more confidence and you're more self-aware and you have more tools in your arsenal to kind of pull out of that. But those things are going to happen.
Yeah, I think it's a Bill Burr thing where he was like doing nooners at these college campuses where he's like,
Yeah.
in 50 minutes, I'm going to be in my car and I'm going to be done. And I've definitely played shows where I'm like, it's not going well. And it's like, you know what? In 7 songs, I'm going to be having a drink and I'm going to be off the stage and it's going to
Yeah.
be all right.
And it is what it is. And you live to see another day. It's not like you're dead. You get an opportunity, whether it being what's great about New York is you can get off stage and then you have an opportunity sometimes like 20 minutes. And that's like when I think you get really tough because it's like, all right, the off chance that you do bomb. And I don't want to make it seem like I'm bombing all the time. Like I've had like my number of experiences like everybody else. But if you do bomb and it's like, all right, you got a show like in 20 minutes, it's like, well, all right, shake it off, buddy. Like, because you got a wholly different crowd and you got to bring it for them. And, there's just a level of like, you feel competitive and it's a competition against yourself to be better. It was very fulfilling and it's stimulating, you know?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's also good to hear that you're like analyzing some of your sets where like, oh, I missed the tag, or like if I said this or if I did that. And, like your basketball
Yeah.
analogy where it's like, you got to kind of look in the mirror and be like, sometimes audiences suck, but it's also like, what's my role in all this? So I think that's wise of you.
And I remember I don't know if it was a show, an open mic. I remember because these open mics are just grueling, and thank God I was able to get out of that circuit in a couple years span. And because I don't know how those things are just tough. You run into like some crazy characters, but I mean one thing that a lot of people do is in those experiences they'll get on and they'll say like a joke will bomb and they'll be like, oh, whoa, was that not funny? And I remember like, just hearing that enough times. I remember I shouldn't have said anything, but I got on afterwards. I was like, I was like, I fucking hate when people are like, oh, is that funny? It's just like, go back to the basketball thing. I was like, you wouldn't shoot a ball, air ball, and then be like, did that go in? It's like, no, it did it. Like, if it was funny, people would have laughed. All right. Like, so like, that's the baseline is it's like, are you being funny? Are you being funny? And then if you really start to think like that, you can go on these shows at 1:30 in the morning where it's like, you maybe have a couple jokes that you're planning on doing, but if they go bad, you fucking talk about something else. And I've gone on these and it's really new and exciting. Like you go on these tangents and with crowd work and or someone in the audience will give you something that you could spend the next 10 minutes on if you do it the right way. Um, or you could do callbacks to whatever someone said throughout the rest of your set. It's just you're fighting. Like they call it stand up comedy because back in like the 50s or 60s when the mafia or whatever the mobster guys ran the clubs. They'd have comedians on there, and they called them stand up guys, because you're like they called boxers stand up guys when they would take the fall, or like they would throw a fight. And they compared comedy to like fighting with an audience, and in a way you're doing it. Like, they used to literally get like tomatoes and shit thrown at them. Like, luckily I don't have to deal with that anymore. But like, you're up there and it's just you, and you gotta find ways to fight. And the way you'll land a hit is if a joke lands. So I don't know if that was a corny comparison, but it's just the truth of the way things are.
No, I mean, it makes total sense. And, I was watching some of your YouTube stuff. I mean, I've
Yeah.
watched your Instagram, and then I was listening to your podcast, one of the ones about, people wiping back to front, and I was laughing out loud just by
Okay.
myself at my dinner table.
Yeah.
Um, so, we all go through bombing, but like you said, I mean, you're also, I'm a fan. I think you're crushing it. And
Oh, thank you,
I,
man. And I'm not an expert, by the way. Anybody who's listening, it's like, this is my experience. This is my 2 cents on the matter. I'll continue to grow, and probably, I don't know if I'll look back on this and cringe. I definitely won't, because I think I'm right about a lot of this stuff. But it's an evolving thing, and I understand that for anyone who's like, well, this guy is only a couple years in or whatever. But this is just my experience.
I mean, it's a journey for sure. And that's even with this podcast, I'm kind of trying to get people that in the next like couple years are going to be kind of the, that kind of top tier thing where it's like right now we're all just kind of like struggling and fighting and making it happen. But shit takes time.
It takes time, and it's tough. It's something that you got to stick with. Well, the good thing about stand up is you write a joke, you can try it out that night 5 times, and like get immediate feedback. One thing that I've struggled with is I during the quarantine is I haven't been very consistent with my podcast and certain things, because it's one, just going through it and traveling and just the nature of how things are right now. And I need to be more consistent with the podcast. I've put out some sketches and stuff, and I've been tweeting, but you don't always get the immediate feedback. Like, the closest thing is I guess Twitter, where you could see if people like your shit or whatever. But it is tough. So it's something that just takes a long time, I think, for anybody pursuing something in the arts. But it is fulfilling, and if you understand it's a process, then I think you'll get more joy out of it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I brought it up before, but that Florida fireman or fireworks
The
thing,
fireworks
that
thing, yeah.
that was going around. It's got a lot of views, so that's awesome.
You did pretty well on Twitter, yeah. And
Yeah,
the,
exactly.
the really encouraging thing is a lot of people thought it was real. So I love trolling people. I definitely think that there's a lot of stupid people out there, but for the people that are like able to turn their brain on, I think they really enjoyed it. So I'm glad you enjoyed it too. Obviously, you're a capable human being. You can operate a vehicle. But yeah,
No,
I love doing shit like that.
no, it was super clever, and I think there's certain things in my sense of humor that kind of where it's like toes that line of like I can't tell like well we can tell that it's that
Yeah.
was like a sketch, but then yeah. And the other thing, we were talking about laughter and whatnot, and I'm just wondering like what does laughter do to you or do for you when you can make people laugh?
You know what, man? I've been thinking about this a lot during the last 4 months, because I've only been doing stand up for however many, it would have been now I guess 3 years, but I haven't done in the last 4 months, which is not a lot of time. But when I got to New York, boom, it's 2 years of every single night. With obviously a handful of nights taken off, but like pretty much every single night out there all the time, spending the vast majority of my time, on stage, or looking for stage time, running around and dedicated to stand up. So one thing that I would notice if I took like a day or two off, or I wasn't able to do it, like say I got sick or whatever, I would never really take a couple of days off. But if I got sick, I wasn't able to do it, I noticed that like the next time I did it again, I just had this rush, and like I felt better, and it was almost like as if I didn't know that it was negatively affecting me not doing it, because it is a high. And like the fact that I was able to do it so much, and I guess professionally for a short period of time. I remember like January, February, and March before this hit, and even like December, I really wasn't like partying as much, or like didn't really feel the need to like go out and get drunk, or I smoke weed. I love weed, but like I did feel like the need to always to really like I didn't have any of these urges to do that stuff, because I was like the high was like the was becoming like the work, because I was
Mm.
getting something out of it. um and I just was like, when this thing hit, I was like, okay, well, I feel like this is I'm coming onto I'm gonna be going into some sort of depression here. And I can only imagine what people have been doing it for 10, 15 years are feeling like. So it is a dopamine rush. I mean, like, it feels great, man. Like, and just being able to go out there and connect with people and talk with people, which I like doing regardless, especially in person. And that was my life, especially in New York. You can communicate and interact with people all throughout the day. And then you go on stage, and then you're interacting with people. So it definitely does a lot for me, and it's not the same. When I put out like a video like the one I did that got a good reaction, definitely made me feel good. But making people laugh in person, it's the best thing. Even just like on Zoom or FaceTime with you, making you laugh. It's like, oh, this feels good. Or like making my parents laugh. I'm living with them, or like a friend or whatever. It does feel really good.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I'm being too precious about this, but I think laughter and making people laugh is like one of the best gifts you could ever give somebody. And
Sure. No, I'm a gift giver, man. I'm a goddamn saint.
had a boy.
Really am. I'm freaking Santa Claus over here. But
That's right, man. Well, even I mean, yeah, even this conversation, just some of the stuff, like for me and like my friends, the one thing that always like the way I can tell if I like somebody is sense of humor. And if you're
yeah,
making me laugh, it's like, okay, great, homie, love him, he's the
yeah,
best, or she, whoever.
exactly, man. Even like when I'm dating, when I'm going out with girls, it's like, sense of humor is a big deal. Not that like everything I say is going to be funny, but it's like, one, like what like just what is your sensibilities, like anything else. And I think sense of humor is huge, and especially with how absurd our current time is, our current climate is, you need to be able to laugh at things. And one thing that's been a little discouraging is, I try to be funny on Twitter and social media when I can, and especially on Twitter, like I only really tweet jokes, or I troll people, I guess, whatever. But I don't see as many people, I think 6 months or a year ago, trying to be as funny. So it makes me happy when I get to see that stuff. But I appreciate art in general, like whether it's comedy or music. Music deeply inspires me. So, and and reading and things like that. So I definitely been using this time to appreciate other forms of art and gain inspiration from them. But yeah, sense of humor I think is integral to just to my life, and I think the well being of a lot of people.
Yeah, I think humor is so important, and it's like it feels like comedians are kind of the last people that are telling the truth, like the actual truth,
Yeah, it's
and they're
how it's flipped like that.
yeah, and it's entertaining, and yeah, it's funny. So I think their role is super important, and you're just kind of touching on that, but with woke culture and all that shit, do you pay attention to that? Do you care about cancel culture or anything like that, or is it just like I'm gonna do what I do?
I care about it, but like, I mean, I'm on Twitter all the time. Like, I mean, I feel like, uh, you know, especially with the last 4 months, there's been no real, like, I'm not part of like a physical community. So like Twitter, I guess, has become like, I hate to say it, but like a community. I mean, it is a community.
It's
All online stuff is, and there's nothing really wrong with that. But of course, too much of anything is a bad thing. And I think that we're seeing with the cancel culture, like, we deify a lot of celebrities and public figures in our society. So the bigger that we build someone up, the harder that they're gonna fall. But everyone's human, and then they make errors. Of course, like if you're like a terrible person, then you shouldn't be allowed certain things. Like if you're like a Cosby or Weinstein or one of these people, like these are obviously cancelable people and monsters of human beings. But some of the woke stuff, I think it does go over the line because we need to make jokes. We need to be able to joke about certain things. I don't need to. I mean, there are people, but there are people who ruin it for everybody else. Like they feel the need to be offensive for the sake of it. But I don't know. It's going to be interesting. I think that eventually people will get tired of it, and that maybe like things are cyclical. So you look at comedy after in like the 2000s after 9/11. Like just the type of comedy it was, very absurdist, some over the line in a lot of ways. And I think maybe after everything that's going on now, maybe that you'll see some of that stuff again, obviously in a different form. But right now, it's just like if you can make someone go yes, then that's like as well as getting a laugh, I guess. So it's very interesting.
Yeah, definitely interesting time, and it's been cool to see some of like I know I mentioned that Bill Burr special, and then the new Dave Chappelle where he kind of just
Yeah,
gives it right back to the audience where it's like, "You guys suck. This is the worst time ever. Fuck you guys." And I
yeah,
think the pushback in a sense, there's definitely certain people that are, perhaps cancelable and like they're monsters. Sure, done. But
yeah.
some of the other stuff, yeah, I think we got to like turn the temperature down on some of this stuff. But
We're just bored, man. Like we've been locked up for months. So like if you're like an unsuccessful person and you're like, fuck, I hate my life. Who can I direct this blame on that's other than me? You get these instances where these are like 35-year-old men with like families who are like, this person did this back in 2011. And then you know what? A week later, that person who tried to cancel someone is getting canceled themselves. No one is perfect, especially with the digital age. There's receipts for everything now, and like I think ultimately, if like this is the direction we want to go, then a lot of more people are going to be fucked. Everybody's going to be fucked. Everybody said something that's regrettable, but I think it's important that we do need to find a way to grow and learn from these mistakes, and just necessarily like I don't think canceling every single person for everything they've ever done is the right way to go about something. I mean, like Deshaun Jackson the other day, I see he posted a quote from Hitler. It was like very anti-Semitic quote from Hitler. I mean, this is a professional football player who just like posted on a social media a fucking quote from Adolf Hitler. And is he canceled? No. Did he have a lot of advertisements or endorsements anyway? I don't think so. But Julian Edelman and a couple other people have reached out to him and are like, hey, look, like let's use this opportunity to teach each other, because he's like, well, Julian Edelman's white guy, Jewish guy. He's like, well, you could teach me a lot about Black history. I could teach you about Jewish history. That I think is great. So, and I know a lot more people are doing that. So I think if that's a direction that we can kind of go towards, it's just good for not only like people like me and you, but our future generations. So there's a lot of teachable moments there. But this oversensitivity to certain things, I don't think it's necessarily good. It's definitely not good for comedy. But I mean, if you look at comedy now, like and just entertainment in general, a lot of it is independent. Podcasts, Patreons, OnlyFans, and so like it's trending towards that way anyway. And the people that like Ben Shapiro is not going to get a Netflix show, but like it's like one of the biggest podcasts. So
yeah, exactly. I didn't see the Deshaun thing, but I saw he was in the press for something he said. But
yeah,
like you're saying, I think conversations, it's important to just like talk and listen without just reacting and attacking, and teachable moments where it's like, hey, like as long as there's growth, it's like, hey, I think we kind of messed up here. Like, let's talk about this in a civil way, and like let's see what we can learn from this experience, and whoever's paying attention can also learn. But yeah, just some conversations which I've always liked. The Joe Rogan, I'll listen to 3-hour episodes often just because it's like, what are you going to learn in like a 5-minute soundbite with on cable TV?
Yeah, I mean, if Deshaun Jackson after this came out and was like, "No, I love Hitler," then it's like, okay, then maybe we push the brakes a little bit. Like it's like, okay, well, this is just how the guy is. But if he was like, I don't know if he's made a statement, like, but if he came out and was like, "Look, this is my bad. I was totally like in the wrong for doing this," or I didn't even know better, and now I'm trying to educate myself. It's like, well, you know, that could be just a political statement to put out, like the PC statement to say, but maybe that's the truth. Maybe he is learning, and it's a good experience. So I think it's important that we try to not be as sensitive, but we live in a feelings based society. Um, you know, uh, the participation trophy age, is some people call it, but these are not
Yep.
just like kids. These are like grown men and women who are like getting on their laptops and doing deep dives of what people said. So that is
So bizarre.
it's dude, it's incredibly bizarre. It's really weird. I mean, and these people now themselves are getting canceled. It's like, are you surprised that people aren't perfect? Like, let's have some nuance here. Like, what did they do? How bad was it? Was it a mistake or an accident? But I mean, our society is not built on that. I mean, we don't it's not like a reformist society. Like, there's no rehabilitative program for people who get arrested and go to jail and are felons. I mean, they can't even vote, and they're vilified the rest of their lives. So like, this is it's like an institutional thing, I think, to a degree. And I think you're seeing a lot of the problems that we have in our country right now, the way that we've dealt with this, and obviously with police brutality. Like, a lot of these things are just like hundreds of years in the making, or decades at least in the making. So it's going to take some unraveling. But maybe this is a good moment in society where we can learn. But all I know is the 4 days I just spent in St. Petersburg, watching these people, essentially 69 in public. It's like, we're not. I don't know where the hope is.
I'm trying to remain positive and hopeful as like hard and scary and just difficult is everything that we're going through because just kind of feels like everything's crumbling and then like what you saw down in Florida and then what I see in other places where it's like this all feels extremely unhopeful.
Yeah.
But what can you do?
Exactly. What can you do? I mean, it is tough because the news isn't built, and the media are not built to inspire hope, necessarily. They're built for ratings. So unfortunately, there's a lot of fear mongering out there. But then the fear mongering gets weaponized by people like Ron DeSantis, who are saying that 15,000 cases a day is fear mongering. Like, and our president, who's like, if we just don't test, then we won't have cases. So I mean, dude, it's all convoluted and fucked up, and really the only way to make it through it is to kind of sit back, reflect, and develop your own understanding and of it, and doing your best to learn, and hoping that works out in some capacity. But you're right, there doesn't seem to be a lot of hope, and it's incredibly depressing. So that might as well be funny, and joke around, and I guess listen to good music, and you know do some meth, and go to Applebee's if that's what gets you off.
Dan Carney 2020.
Meth and Applebee's, that's the platform.
Well, I want to be mindful of your time, so just got a couple more for you. But
Sure.
we're
I have
talking.
another 10 months, so you're coming close here.
Yeah, exactly. We were talking a little bit earlier about some of your like workshopping in New York City and doing shows with a bunch of comics and whatnot. Do you have a good like support system of other comedians kind of around your talent range or like your level that you're kind of like hanging out with and kind of like a class of comedians you roll with?
Yeah, I would say that I do, to an extent. Especially, I feel like I was building that towards it's fun. First of all, it's something it's always evolving, right? Like, you move to New York, and like anything, like you start a job, like you start an entry level position. Your friends are going to be other people in that entry level position, likely. And then as you move up, your own success and success of your friends ideally builds. So I felt that to a degree. I mean, the comedian I was opening for, he's I mean, like, not successful at all compared to him. So like having him as a friend is I guess inspiring in some ways, but and then some of the other friends that I have, I felt like I was building a good network, and I am in communication with those people now, and I talk to them on the phone fairly regularly. So, and luckily for me, I feel like those people are more successful than I am. So it is a good friends to have, and they are supportive, and I'm able to have like there's like a group of people that like if I'm making a sketch like that I can send it to and be like, hey, what do you think about this, like, and then luckily I've whittled it down to like probably two or three people where I could send it to, and if it's not funny, they'll just be like, didn't do it for me. Or if it's funny, they'll be like, that was a really funny concept. You got to do it like this, or try it in a different format. So I'm lucky to have that kind of support system to let me know when I'm doing something right, when I'm doing something wrong, and I think that's important for everybody. You got to have people that'll tell you what the fucking the weather is. Like look, like if I'm fucking up, I'm the type of person where I want to know if you feel I'm fucking up. If I tweeted, if I would, not that I ever would, but if I say I tweeted something that was incredibly insensitive to a group of people, I would rather have a friend respond to me and be like, hey dude, that was, I would take that down. This is why you're wrong about this, rather than just being like that guy talking behind my back, or girl being like, hey, that guy's a fucking bigot, or that guy's an idiot, or that guy does this. It's like, why would you not like try to at least teach me or show me, you know? But I'm lucky to have some friends that'll tell me what the business is.
That's awesome, man. When I was playing in the band and whatnot, there's like a handful of us that like we'd have beers before the show or after or whatever, where it's like, hey, we like this song or we don't, or hey, if you try this, and like you said, to have somebody to tell you what the weather's like, that's so important. But it's good for you to be open to that, where you're willing to like, hey, I fucked up, I just need to do this, or if somebody like has feedback for you, you're willing to listen to it and take it and be like, oh, you know what, you're right, that's interesting, let me try that out.
Yeah, I mean, like I want to be successful, so like I always tell my friends, like if I send them something and they don't like it, I have some friends that like won't respond, and I'll talk to them later about it. They're like, yeah, I thought it sucked, and like if I like or whatever, if I'm like, yeah, dude, that thing I sent you wasn't good, they're like, yeah, I agree. I'm like, well, why don't you just tell me that? Tell me that. Like if I'm doing something wrong or doing something you don't like, I send it to you, or I have you in my life because I value your opinion to some degree. I don't have to listen to that opinion, but like if I'm sending you like a video or think something I wrote or just a bit idea, tell me what you think. Don't sugarcoat it for me. Tell me what it is. I want to be successful. Like we're not gonna like it, but people are very emotional, and I think that like I'm not gonna succeed. You're not gonna succeed. None of us are gonna succeed if nobody tells us like, hey, this is you know how I feel. This is what I feel you're doing wrong. But at the same time, you're not going to make everybody happy. So it's finding a balance.
Yeah, we don't want participation trophies.
No, no, I have none of them in my house. I have no first place trophies either because I wasn't a great athlete. But like, you know what? I found something else that I enjoy and was able to find minor successes in, and that became you know my thing. So it's important to tell to there's a reason if I played football my whole life, someone told me I was good at football, I probably would have a broken neck by now. So like, thank God.
Yeah. Well, we're on the up and up. We got things coming up once COVID kind of ends. And yeah, I know it's kind of difficult to assess things and assess the future just because of all the shit that's going on. But in the next 6 months to a year, what are you kind of looking forward to for yourself in the near future?
To be totally honest, man, I'm looking forward to building a lab where I can produce methamphetamines in my parents' uh, office space. No, I just really
Nice.
lean into meth. I'm like, yeah, man, like comedy is I'm done. I'm done with that. I'm done with conforming. I'm a people person. I can pedal this shit better than everybody else. No, I honestly, I am looking forward to. I've been reading a lot more. I've been doing some personal writing, and just kind of trying to do things that I enjoy. You know, I'm a person that's been lucky enough to collect some unemployment. I would like to do some traveling. I do have plans to travel out west to see some friends there and do that in a very safe and responsible fashion. So I'm looking forward to going camping and hiking and kind of experiencing some things. And you know, I want to continue filming sketches and working and writing on things. And you know, I am living with my parents here, and so I'm going to see if, you know, maybe I can do something about, you know, building a better relationship with my family, or, you know, doing little things like that, to where like what am I able to do now that I wouldn't have been able to do had my year gone as anticipated. What I do, I wish that the year was I was able to go on tour and do all those things, of course, but there's a lot of things that I wouldn't have had time for otherwise. And as long as, you know, they're productive, and I think I could become potentially a more well-rounded human being. So I'm going to try to work on that.
I mean, goddamn, yeah, that's how I know you're gonna crush it. You just
I hope so,
hearing
man.
that.
But I hope so. I hope so. But I mean, even if it's not, it's, you know, it's one thing I've learned is, well, I've learned, I think, a lot from this experience, and I think that I will be a lot better because of it. I also have no choice. So like I'm subjected to what's happening in the world. It's you know, there's 18 million people out there who are expected to never return to their jobs pre-pandemic. I'm lucky to not be like a 40-year-old who was running a restaurant for 15 years and that restaurant's gone, and maybe I was going to pass that restaurant on to my son, and like that was going to be our generations of money, and, you know, maybe this kid never went to college. Like, so there's so much shit that I have to be fortunate for, but also, like, you know, things could be taken from you with just like that, and it has nothing to do with you. So, you know, these are important life lessons to kind of carry with me to whatever the next thing is going to be. But right now, like, I think the first like month or a couple months of quarantine, I was like, well, how do I find a way to salvage? Like, do I, you know, I was putting out like I think probably too many videos, and trying to like, oh, like, I'm used to working all the time. How do I do this? I need to do this. I need to worry about this and that. No, I think now is the time to reflect and really try to soak in the fact that this is a fucking crazy thing, and build some sort of positive philosophies that I can take with me for the rest of my life. So that's what I'm going to be working on.
Well said. That's incredible, and yeah, I think that's a nice way to kind of end things here.
Racism, like I'm like, yeah, man, I'm working on becoming racist. You're like, dude, that sounds amazing. And like after this, I'm like retweeting the Deshaun Jackson Hitler post.
Oh my God, yeah.
I'm kidding, guys. It's a joke.
Dan, thank you so much for doing this and for being here with me, man. I really appreciate that.
Dude, thank you so much for having me on. It was a blast talking to you, and I'm sure that we could keep going, but my voice can only be heard for so long.
Maybe we'll do round 2 at some point in the near future.
I'm down.
Awesome, man. Well, I'll talk to you soon. Thanks again, brother.
Sounds good, dude. Thanks again. Oh, guys, follow me. Can I give my little Twitter?
Get the plug, yeah.
Yeah. I'm pretty funny on Twitter, so I'd recommend checking my Twitter out. It's at Dan Carney, and then my Instagram is Dan R Carney. So check those out, and you can just probably Google me, put me in YouTube, and find some of my stuff. So, yeah.
Yeah, check him out. He's the best. It's hilarious. My man, I'll talk to you soon.
Sounds good, bro. Take care.
You too. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of The Gifted Conversations. If you like what you heard, please subscribe, tell a friend, or leave a review. Or if you hated it, feel free to tell me to fuck off or leave a negative comment. Anything is welcome. Appreciate the support, and I'm sending you positive thoughts and energy.